Tonight's seminar is going to be a little bit weird. First, I'm just going to give you a little bit of news of the day item, and I'll get into that in a moment. Then, of course, we're going to jump right into cancer. It's a very challenging topic. It's something that is obviously very controversial, and we are going to wade into controversy, but I want you to know the things that we're going to tell you tonight is at the cutting edge of science, has been written up in medical journals, has been proven, and there is nothing controversial about it except change, as you know, comes slowly. Just witness the auto industry, right? And change is not without controversy. It reminds me, for example, in the 15th and 16th century, sailors would die at tremendous rates from scurvy. And really, that's just vitamin C deficiency. That is from lack of fresh food. And the only thing they would drink for liquid is beer. Very high alcohol content, because they didn't want all the bugs that are in there. So all these sailors would drink is beer and eat salted foods. And one of the great explorers, Dr. Cook, not Dr. Cook, Captain Cook. I read too much about doctors. Captain Cook was one of the first ones that noticed that if he, wherever he landed, he got his sailors to chew on a specific pine bark, and also he was able to somehow preserve citrus and put them on board, and his crew rate of people dying literally got reduced to 0. He only lost some men to accidents, but not due to the scurvy. Scurvy loss rate was about 30 to 40% of the crew at that time. So just a horrible thing and a well-accepted risk, which is why these sailors got paid relatively well. Wrote about it, proved it, documented it, had some of his co-captains prove it, yet it took almost 100 years to implement it. Even though the evidence was absolutely incontrovertible, he was considered Cook, no pun intended. It was just not accepted, and change just comes so slowly, even when they're staring at you in the face. And cancer is a little bit like that. So what you're going to hear tonight is well-grounded, but not always accepted, especially in this country. But before we dive into that, we're going to mention today's paper, USA Today. In Life section, there's a big one-page article on how we should lower our LDL norms another 30%. So I'm thinking, okay, here we go again. 5 years ago, I remember the moment well. I was in Gig Harbor attending a symposium on functional medicine, and I was driving along my car going to where the symposium was at, and on PBS or whatever, I don't remember the station, I think it was PBS, came the argument, okay, we've got to lower our cholesterol norms from 220 down to 200, and we have to get our HDL to here, and by the way, the pharmaceutical industry expects that the prescription rate for our statin drugs, our cholesterol-lowering drugs, should go up by about 30%. So, that, by the way, I thought was kind of important, and then I started studying the business model of this company, and indeed, they had already projected a 30% profit increase for that year alone, which of course makes their stocks go way up, and CEOs, of course, are happy with this. I think we've about maxed out what those stats are at, so we're right at level ground again. So now we're lowering the LDL, and that is norms. And that is extremely difficult to do, by the way. It takes a lot of medication. And the pharmaceutical companies stated with the latest research that this means that 100% of men over 60 should now be on statins, and 80% of all women over 60 should be on statins. It means that currently that it would increase the market of men, just men in general. So that's my age, everybody included. Hey, 45% of them are taking statins. Can you imagine? It is mind-boggling They are quoting one study that shows when you do this, you're cutting heart attack risk in half. It's a very shaky study, and it's already gotten a few rebuttals out there, so I'm waiting to see with interest what's going to happen. This is the name of the game, and this is what we're up against. It's a whole one-page article in favor of what they have to say, with really no criticism against it, except there's one paragraph that mentions that maybe inflammation may be part of heart disease. We know it is one of the main causes of heart disease. And one of the researchers admitted that maybe cholesterol and inflammation might be behind heart disease. Again, it was one paragraph. I noticed it was cholesterol and inflammation. It wasn't inflammation and maybe cholesterol. Either case, that was today's news, and I thought that was interesting. What we're going to talk about today also has a lot to do with heart disease, but we're going to focus on cancer instead. What I'm going to do is I'm going to review one of I'm going to redo some of those slides because there was a big demand for the DVD on it, and we dropped the ball on that one. We had a problem with it, so I'm going to go through those slides again. I'm skipping some of them. But hang on to your seatbelts. I'm going to do this in about 10 to 12 minutes. Obesity is a main cause of cancer. The only question is what percentage. It can be as high as 40% and it can be as low as 20%. The truth is somewhere in there that is behind cancer or increasing cancer rates. And what we can't quite decide yet is how is obesity causing cancer? Is it the actual weight and the extra amount of fat tissue which is causing inflammation, or is it the lifestyle that got us there causing the cancer? We don't know that. We just know obesity is very much connected, and unfortunately most scientists haven't really thought about that part yet. So we don't have that answer. It's probably like most things, a little bit of both. So let's get into this. In Germany, this is what a fairly typical, and being Dutch myself, this is what we eat. It's fairly typical. These foods look very familiar to me. The Germans are known in the Netherlands as not being the healthiest eaters, but still it looks pretty reasonable, doesn't it? And notice that the food looks really real. This is how it looks in Italy. Mexico. Yeah, you see all the pop behind there at the very back, you see that? And notice what I would call typical Mexican stature. It's very squat, isn't it? And you start to get a belly, that's a very typical Mexican look. I think maybe the pop has something a little bit to do with it. Here we go to Egypt. Ecuador. Okay? I love this guy's smile. Okay? And he must be happy with this food. And notice how much it costs these people as well. Okay? And this is kind of a sad picture. Here we are. That's us. We don't do so well. Yeah, just those pizzas alone is one big dish of horrible fats. You can just consume one of these pizzas and hear your arteries collapsing. Very inflammatory, very processed, loaded with chemicals. We eat only 1.5 servings of vegetables and 1 serving of fruit a day. That is our average. Our government has been trying hard to change this. So we're even trying to make French fries one of our vegetables now. Yeah, seriously. Ketchup might be a vegetable serving. So we're really trying to get people to fit into this box. Yeah, we have an only 11% rate of compliance. So it says that a change in dietary behavior, such as increasing consumption of fruit, vegetables, and grains, is a practical strategy for significantly reducing incidence of chronic diseases. This has been unequivocally proven. It's a very basic point, but it needs to be said, otherwise I would not be complete. This is an actual grill. This is pretty much the entire menu. And these are the names they put on the menu. Obviously, it's a little bit extreme. But wow, what is this doing to us? Those flatliner fries. Give a 5-year-old girl 2 servings of that a week. You've more than doubled her chances of breast cancer by the time she's 50. Yeah, these trans fats stay in the tissue. So 58 million of us are overweight, 40 million people of us are obese, and 3 million people are morbidly obese. There is a problem here, and here's the trends. Okay, the blue states, this has nothing to do with politics, yeah, is where the problem is lying in 85. 87, 89, 91, 93, 95. We have to come up with another category here at 97. Greater than 20% of the population there. 99, 2001. New categories born. Okay? We're in trouble. It's moving along extremely rapidly and it's not slowing down. 1 in 3 children, one in 3 kids that are born today will be obese by the time they're 30 and will develop diabetes. 1 in 3. Our healthcare system is not going to be able to sustain this. Obama is in trouble because he's going to try to do something about this, but he's looking at it probably, and it's early to say, from a healthcare system, but really it's got to start with us. It's got to start with us. It's got to start with seminars like this, education, people telling people, and getting this thing turned around. This is causing a tsunami wave of chronic disease, including cancer. New research shows that food changes our genes. Sure, grandpa might have been very overweight and might have had this or this disease. It does not mean that you have to get this disease, that it raises your chances of that disease. All you have to do is talk to your genes through lifestyle, through what you eat, and change gene expression. We're going to explain that momentarily. And you can almost completely shut off that gene. There's a gene that is extremely dominant in Iowa especially for breast cancer. It's called BR and then a bunch of numbers behind it. Yeah? For those that have 2 of those genes mixed together, the chances of getting breast cancer is 93%. So we're talking a very potent gene influence here. However, studies have shown that if you go to a vegan-style diet with these people, avoid the foods that we know cause inflammation, we can reduce this incidence to about 12%, close to the population of the US, just with food alone. Just with food alone. We can successfully shut down an extremely dominant gene. Gene expression. I just thought of it last week. I have some Native Americans as patients here. And you look at the typical Native American, diabetes by the time they're 40, they're very apple-shaped, very short. Yeah? And these are full-blooded Native Americans that come and see me. And they look like the Native Americans from the 1880s. You see those pictures, they're beautiful people. Lanky, tall, athletic. They glow. This family that I'm thinking of glows. They eat like Native Americans from the past. They are talking to their genes what they're supposed to be talking to. And then the story of life that's being read from those genes is a nice story. It's almost a fairy tale. It's not a tale of horrors like most Native Americans who are diabetic at age 45 have an incredibly low life extension rate, even lower functional life or health rate. It's unbelievable how you can change your genes by what you eat. So food has to be respected. It's like a drug. Sending artificial, excessive, muddled signals to kinases. Those are inflammatory hormones. I can't even begin to think what these food colors will do to you. If you buy pastries in my home country, it doesn't look like that. It looks like real food. And if we have red on it, it's from beets. And if there is cream on it, something white, it's made from real stuff. It's not some chemical compound. So even the pastries over there are actually a lot better. I wouldn't say they're good for you, but they're better for you than these are. Yeah? These are made from chemicals. We have over 2 million different chemicals that have been produced since we started producing chemicals for foods since 1950 that have been approved. Over 2 million of them. And it's just adding up at an ever-accelerating rate. Most of them have been barely tested, especially in the quantities that we're eating. So we are sending some bad signals to ourselves. It's mindless, it's excessive, it's nutrient poor, it's not enjoyable. And we'll send you spinning. So genetic expression is what this is all about. Number of fat cells. This is brand new research on genetic expression. Number of fat cells range greatly from person to person. Yes, some of us are up against a wall. Yeah? Some of us are up against the wall. And this is new research coming out from Stockholm last year. It doesn't mean it's impossible though. But if you hear someone say it's really hard for me to lose weight, believe them. Yeah, believe them, because it is hard for some people. New research from Helsinki from last year shows that if you gain 11 pounds, so this is maybe your winter fat, you slow down your metabolism dramatically. We're in trouble when we're 30 pounds overweight. We really are. It gets really hard. Why at 11 pounds? That seems to be the tipping point where inflammation starts from fat at rest. So if you've gained 11 pounds and you go to sleep tonight, you are secreting inflammatory compounds spreads through your body. What if there's a really dominant gene for cancer that runs in your family? It's going to irritate that gene. It's going to promote it. If you have had a lot of stress in life, your stress hormones that get secreted from your adrenals especially have to go somewhere, and the breakdown products thereof go in fat cells. It becomes a safe storage place, and that is why when you're under stress it is so hard to lose weight. Unexplained weight gain may be simply too much stress. Time to take a break, go on vacation. University of Chicago, one of our hometowns here, shows that when you get more sleep, it is incredible how much weight loss you can get just by sleeping more. It has to do with leptin versus ghrelin, which is our satiety versus hunger hormone, and it brings it back in balance. You tend to eat less when you sleep more. You snack less. You have less cravings. Loss of sleep is epidemic and has contributed greatly to our obesity epidemic, which has greatly contributed to our cancer epidemic. Yeah? Another important finding from just last year is that adenoviruses transform stem cells to fat cells. Stem cells are precursor cells to everything. You can change a stem cell to a liver cell, to a hair cell, to a fat cell, to whatever you want. The body chooses where it has to go. If you catch this virus, which is a common bug, you can get your stem cells to go to fat cells and you can actually increase the number of fat cells. So yes, you may be able to blame some of your weight gain to the common cold. And it's also been proved that if you've had a lot of ear infections as a young child, your taste buds have permanently changed. And you will eat more and have more cravings because of it. No one, that one came out of the blue. Interesting though, huh? So, phytonutrients, which are plant nutrients, can make a significant impact, get rid of inflammation, detoxify your fat cells, and thus speed up your metabolism. Loaded with antioxidants, so that broccoli is potent stuff. It increases, one serving of broccoli can more than double your liver function for 2 to 3 days. Absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. We've taken some of that plant knowledge and applied it to concentrated forms, because when somebody is way out there in health, as far as health goes, you have to go up and above and beyond plants and give an extra kick. And we do that here with something called Ultrameal 360, which is a totally plant-derived product that we utilize for insulin resistance, get insulin levels down, as well as weight loss. It also happens to dramatically lower cholesterol and triglycerides, inflammatory compounds, and blood pressure, all in one fell swoop. More than those statins, by the way, in just 6 weeks' time. We can reduce insulin levels with it in 4 to 6 weeks at almost 27%. Mediterranean diet itself is really good too, though. Look at that, with exercise, 22%. But if you go on the anti-diabetic drugs, you're increasing your insulin by 8%. You're really increasing inflammation dramatically. That's why metformin, there's a new black box around it. That's the anti-diabetes drug. May increase heart attack risk, and it does significantly. Significantly, it's because it raises insulin levels. So why should we be bothered by all of this? Obesity is a cause of disease. 80% of diabetes related to it, 70% of cardiovascular disease, 42% of breast and colon cancer is obesity. And it increases mortality very dramatically. By age 20 to 29, you can see that with high obesity, the risk goes up dramatically. It goes up 4 to 5-fold. And I can show this graph for all kinds of, I had a whole bunch of them on various types of cancers. Obesity and cancer go together, and they obviously affect chronic disease as well. So we have instituted first-line therapy to dramatically lower insulin, inflammation, and weight, which is what we do in this office. We use this facility right here for exercise, teaching exercise, making sure you're doing it right. We use the rooms back there for one-on-one counseling to make sure whatever challenges you are encountering, we address. And thus we force it to go through accountability. You're keeping grasp. And Tina does, and Leah just gang up on my patients and she do, and maybe to make it happen. And we absolutely love it. So some of the health benefits all happen at the same time. If this doesn't motivate you, I can't motivate you. So what are we to do? We gotta change your muscle to fat. It's not about fat to muscle, thank you. It's not about weight loss, it's about changing measurements. It's about increasing vitality and health. Weight loss comes with that. I know everyone is so fixated on it. We all know, no, we shouldn't, but we do anyway. You might even gain weight at first as you're gaining muscle. Terrific, as long as your measurements are changing. Nervous anxiety, fatigue, premature aging, chronic pain, depression, and central obesity gets affected very dramatically by lifestyle therapy in just 6 to 8 weeks. Ultrameal is what we utilize with most of them because it has had the most clinical studies and so far is the only medical food proven to date that has been written up in the clinical and medical journals to actually reduce body fat here, reduce cholesterol, blood pressure, all the things we talked about, including cardiovascular and cancer risk, very dramatically. So that's why we utilize, because in this office we're very science-oriented. I like to use what's proven, and that's why we utilize what we do. What we're going to go into next is some very dramatic information presented by Colin Campbell. Colin Campbell, Dr. Stacy is going to introduce us to this very powerful work, compelling evidence. If you don't mind me introducing this for you. Colin Campbell, we just first heard at a very large medical symposium out in Florida. He was the keynote speaker for hundreds of doctors, and what he had to say had their mouths gaping open and ears flapping. I could see all the pens are laying still, no computers were going, and I had so much fun sitting back in the room just watching these heads as he was presenting this information, because Dr. Colin Campbell is extremely respected in the medical world. He's a biochemist who has devoted his life to research and has headed up most major health organizations that you've heard of in our news. And what he had to present was so compelling, so controversial. He has testified before Congress on this. He has gone worldwide spreading this message. And he really has been, what he's going through here is what I consider the Grand Prix of all studies. It's the largest study ever done in the field of nutrition and medicine, for that matter. It went on for about 30 years. It's still going on, measuring over 8,000 parameters. And how many people did we figure? Almost 30,000 people?
65,000.
65,000 people, measuring about 8,000 parameters of health and how diet and lifestyle influences them, and in a big way on cancer. So this is an incredible study that has taken an incredible amount of effort and a lifetime of dedication. And we applaud Dr. Colin Campbell for coming out with this. And I feel that this is going to really resonate for a long, long time. The study is still ongoing, and Dr. Stacy is going to have the pleasure of presenting a lot of those findings. Then, unfortunately, you'll have me again, and I will get into some very complex genetic research that is affecting cancer, and then we'll try to wrap it up and try to make sense of it all. So, fasten your seatbelts. Here comes Dr. Stacy.
Thank you, thank you. Okay. So we're going to talk, pretty much I'm going to cover kind of the book synopsis for you, but it's definitely worth the read. Trying to get a little bit of reverberation there. That sounds better. So what happened, that he had taken 24 different laboratories in 4 different continents and 6 different countries to do all of the blood work and urinalysis studies that he had done in China. So there's 367 different variables, which equals more than 8,000 statistically significant associations, and right now ongoing it's still about 20-some years, almost 30 years worth of work. 65 countries and 24 different provinces, 100 adults from each, equivalent of 50-50. Half of those donated a urine sample, and all of them donated blood samples, ages 35 to 64. So also what they looked at is as the death rate. If they were over 64, they didn't mark that down on the death toll. So all this is written up in a much, much longer version, but this is what he synopsis in the book. So, statistics of cancer. 47% of men have a chance of getting cancer, 38% of women. That's pretty shocking when you look at what we're dealing with. 1 out of every 7 of our dollars is spent on healthcare. We are one of the sickest nations, yet we have one of the best healthcare systems around. So, different cancer-causing agents, which I'm sure you've heard of throughout the years. Aflatoxins, which is the mold found on corn and peanuts. Nitrites, which is found in your hot dogs and your bacon. Red dye number 2. Artificial sweeteners such as saccharin. Heard about high-protein diet? Has anybody ever heard about that? That is mainly what we're going to talk about. So cancer is a 3-step process, and we're going to use a long association here. So when we initiate cancer, that's when you put your seeds in your lawn, okay? For the next promotion phase, when the grass grows, everything has to be right. You can put seeds in your lawn all day long. If you don't water it and it doesn't get sunshine, there's going to be no grass, right? So same thing for cancer. You can have all of that initiation phase, but everything has to be right, okay? Diet, lifestyle, stress, all of those things have to show up for the cancer to start to grow. There's also the progression stage. This is where the cancer is actually showing up and it's out of control. It's invading your driveway, your shrubbery. So it's that house that's been on the market but nobody's living in. That's what it looks like, okay? So in the China study, he started out with animal studies. This was a researcher that had spent most of his life on a farm. His dad died at a young age. of a heart attack, and he lived on a farm where they drank milk and had a typical American diet of meat and potatoes for dinner. And he found out through all of his research that his dad's heart disease could have been prevented through lifestyle changes alone, and just mainly diet. So what he had gone into is he was originally looking into a Philippine study on children and why their children got sick and died before 5 years of age. Well, what he had found out is that the children that tended to die before 5 years of age were the ones that had the affluence or the money, so they had more protein in their diets. The other ones, yes, they weren't as healthy. They weren't healthy by no means, but they were still alive past 5. So what he did in his animal studies, he used aflatoxin because that was known to show that liver cancer became a problem, and he used a protein diet. He used a 5% protein diet and a 20% protein diet. And he used mice to start out with. And he found that when he fed aflatoxin, whether at a small or a large dose, even at the highest dose of aflatoxin that should be toxic to a mouse, at the 5% protein diet, cancer cells did not grow. It was very slow growing if it did. And when he jumped up their diet to a 20% protein diet, the cancer cells grew rapidly. Okay? And then he could go back to a 5% diet, and the cancer cells would back off and the cells would decrease. Okay? So diet alone, he found, was a major marker on these animals and whether or not liver cancer was promoted. And what he found is when they switched from protein, they used a 1-to-1 glucose-starch ratio, and the glucose-starch ratio on its own did increase the liver cancer, but when it was used with a low-protein diet, the liver cancer did not increase. Okay? So what he used as his protein is casein, which is 87% of what milk is made of. Okay? So casein promotes cancer growth while using a highly integrated system of mechanisms. It is a powerful, convincing, and consistent effect. In 1981, as Doc was talking, there was a group that reviewed diet and cancer and prepared it for the United States Congress. And what they found is that genetics is only 2 to 3% of the cause of cancer. The rest of it has to do with us, our lifestyles. So an average American compared to a Chinese, because this is where the study moves to, he wanted to see if his animal studies actually truly played out the same with humans, because our protein ratios are exactly the same. We need the same amount of protein as a mouse does to live and build muscle. So the average American eats less calories, more fat, and that is included with animal fat and just regular fats, less fiber, much more protein, and a lot less iron. Okay? They also found that the Chinese had much lower blood cholesterols than we did. A lot of their blood cholesterols were 150 and below as a total cholesterol. Now, a lot of doctors would say that 150 total cholesterol is detrimental and you could be at risk of disease. Not true. When he talked to different heart cardiologists, he found out that any of them that had patients with cholesterols of 150 or lower, they did not die from a cardiac event. Now, that was originally what was thought to happen. In this country, heart disease is 17 times higher than it is over in China. We have a higher cancer rate. Our Western diseases all come about because of our higher protein amount, and more he suspects is due to our animal protein. And when he looks at the 3 areas of cancer that he studied, he looked at prostate, large colon cancer, and breast cancer. Breast cancer is one of the most interesting because a lot of us believe that it's strictly genetic. And as he had pointed out earlier that only 2 to 3% of it comes from genes, breast cancer detection is why we're seeing such great survival rates. We're detecting it earlier, so we're being able to survive sooner from it. But he don't believe that this is truly because of our choices of how we're treating it. Tamoxifen, which is up here, which is your #1 breast cancer prevention and treatment. Tamoxifen was once thought to be an estrogen blocker. What they're finding out now is tamoxifen breaks down in 2 metabolites, and it's endoxifen and 4-HT. They're not really sure 100% of what 4-HT does yet, but they know that endoxifen goes in and degrades the estrogen receptors. So you don't have the estrogen receptors there. Tamoxifen on its own, in the presence of estrogen, does not stop cancer growing. The endoxifen is what stops the cancer. But when you look at it, this has to be turned on through the P450 pathway, which is your liver pathway. It's phase 1 of detoxification. If you are missing the genetic code to make this active and turn it into endoxifen and 4-HT, you're taking a $40 to $100 per month treatment. That's not going to work for you. Okay? So besides the other things that go on there with the totally degrading the estrogen receptor, is it worth it in the long run? Hormone replacement therapy, which can mean birth control or, as we go through menopause, adding estrogen or progesterone, that increases your breast cancer risk by 26 to 30% alone. The tamoxifen also increases your risk of stroke, deep vein thrombosis, uterine cancer, which you're trying to prevent a cancer with it, but then you get another cancer, not really a good outcome, and pulmonary embolism. So it's kind of scary of what's going on here. Now what they did find in China is that as they saw the diet changes, those that had more protein in their diet, primarily animal protein, those are the ones that didn't have the heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and autoimmune diseases. So not only is the recipe for foods to prevent cancer, we're talking about everything. Okay? So one of the things that he also looked at is the large bowel cancer, and that 6% of Americans do get colorectal cancer. The way to screen for this is a colonoscopy. One of the things that they have stated to research is that fiber supposedly helps colon cancer. Well, overall, yes, fiber has helped support and get us through the risk of colon cancer. But one of the things that they thought it did was that too much fiber could create iron absorption problems. And what he found in the China study is that there's no iron absorption issue. As you eat more plant-based fiber, your iron absorption goes up. When we eat more animal-based fiber, the iron absorption goes down. And there's not much fiber in an animal base, okay? So this does decrease the risk of rectal and colon cancer. It decreases your blood cholesterols. It also makes us feel full. When you eat a salad, you fill up very quickly. Yes, you will get hungry sometime after that, but it does help you fill up. And it's one of the things that is needed to help pull toxins out of the system. With prostate cancer, 25% of all the cancer tumors diagnosed is prostate cancer. PSA levels are the way that they detect this right now. There's really no other way. A digital rectal exam helps, but a lot of times we're using blood work numbers in this. The insulin-like growth factor 1. This is a blood level that we can look at in the body. If this is increased in an unhealthy diet or a 20% or more animal protein diet, we'll turn this on, and what that does is it increases your risk by 5.1 times more for advanced stage of prostate cancer. If the protein is not there that helps to bind to the insulin-like growth factor 1, it increases your chance of 9.5 times the risk. So it's very scary what this diet changes can do. So when Dr. Denbour was talking about the lifestyle therapy and how we really work with people with diet, this is one of the things that really should be an eye-opener for everybody, is that it doesn't mean you can't have animal products, but the excess that we have them in our diet is staggering. So some food principles that were takeaways that I really thought were wonderful, because this exactly represents what we talk about, is nutrition represents the combined activities of countless food substances. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So don't forget that food, how it reacts in your body, goes under many, many chemical reactions, not just the one that we think that we see in the research, that, oh, vitamin C is only for this and you only need this fruit for that, because oranges have more than vitamin C. They react in multiple different ways in the body that we don't even understand fully yet. Vitamin supplements are not a panacea for good health. This is so true. Diet and lifestyle changes are the first place to go. The supplements help us to get over the hump and to heal some of the problem areas, but if you don't address your diet, you're never going to get the full health that you're looking for. There are virtually no nutrients in animal-based foods that are not better provided by plants. There are new research studies coming out, and you're seeing a lot in the New York Times about how they're talking about how many kids are vegans now, and they're the physical athletes. You know, when you're a sports athlete, it's unheard of to be a vegan, because we all think that having the protein is what builds muscles, and that is not necessarily true. You can be just as big with the animal-based protein as you can, or with the plant-based protein, sorry, as you can with the animal-based, and actually better and healthier with the plant-based protein. And genes do not determine diseases on their own. Genes function only by being activated or expressed, and nutrition plays a critical role in determining which genes, good and bad, are expressed. So as Dr. Denbour always was talking about, I do believe, our last seminar, how the nutrition bathes our genes. Those food colors in that one picture of all the hamburgers and the pastries, those bathe our genes with inflammatory messages. What kind of messages are you giving your body? What did you give your body for dinner? How about lunch? Nutrition can substantially control the adverse effects of noxious chemicals. This was so true in the China study on the rats and with people. What he found with the rats is the more aflatoxin that he gave them and the less protein, the less foci or tumors were present. But as he increased the aflatoxin and the protein in the diet, so did the tumor growth. The same nutrition that prevents disease in its early stages, which is before diagnosis, can also halt or reverse disease in its later stages. So after you're diagnosed with cancer, so you first get that call from the doctor that, hey, okay, I'm a woman, so I use breast cancer a lot. I have breast cancer. Okay, the world stops. What do? Your heart pounds, you're scared out of your mind. Where do you go? Best place to start? Let's reevaluate our lifestyle. What are we doing? What have I been eating? Yeah, I love that chocolate cake. Do I need it? Breast, cake. Breast, cake, breast. Nutrition that is truly beneficial for one chronic disease will support health across the board. I love this, because this means that not only what you use for cancer, you can use for heart disease. It's what we use for autoimmune diseases. It's what we use for diabetes. A lot of it seems almost too basic, but it's just reevaluating our life and being accountable. All of us in this office are accountable to one another about what we eat, and we talk about it a lot. So you'll find that a lot of us tend to be more on the vegan edge because we have read these studies and we know what we're seeing every day in the office. And sometimes it is scary, and sometimes it's just we look at it and go, I feel so much better on a plant-based diet. So good nutrition creates health in all areas of our existence. All parts are interconnected. This is so true. I love this quote. I thought this quote was probably the best to sum up what the China study was all about. Good health is about being able to fully enjoy the time we do have. Don't you think? It is all about being as functional as possible throughout our entire lives and avoiding the crippling, painful, and lengthy battles with disease. With that in mind, as you think about what you've eaten today and what you've eaten yesterday, Dr. Denbour is going to go into more of the nuts and bolts of it all.
Thank you. There's a little bit to digest there. And when we listen to what Dr. Stacy had to say, it is fascinating that you can have a tumor and through a diet change, stop it, make it regress. Before it's fully gone, change the diet again and make it progress again. And then make it come back again. You can play with the tumor with just your diet. And this was proven first in mice, then in rats, and then in humans. Phenomenal. Phenomenal. And mainly by manipulating the protein. And not just any old protein. What was used here was dairy protein. Yeah? Dairy protein is what fueled this cancer. They also tried other proteins, and if you reach a high enough level, yeah, you're going to feed, no matter what kind of protein it is. But it took a lot more of soy protein to feed the tumor. With dairy, it took very little bit. Once you went over the 5% protein, at 7-8% protein, like gasoline in a fire. The soy protein, you have to take it all the way up to 20%. Animal proteins, in general, are very, very pro-cancerous. We've known this. It's been sitting right in front of us all this time. Colorectal cancer. We know red meat causes it. We know that. It's been proven over and over and over again. It's something that somehow gets suppressed every time and you don't hear about it. Something about a lobby association, I suspect. I suspect. Last time Oprah Winfrey tried to say something bad about meat. Boy, that was a scene. Yeah? Almost shut her down. Oprah Winfrey. So, Colin Campbell is a vegan. Does that mean we have to be a vegan? Last time we checked to see how Jesus ate, he was not a vegan. So we've got a bit of a conflict there. Whose side should we take? Not really a conflict. No contest. But you also do not read about Jesus eating red meat. And what little we do know, what we can glean from the scriptures, is that it was mostly a plant-based diet with some fish added. Very little from what we can gather. Yeah? Situation changes, however, when your health is less than perfect and you've got cancer. That's the time that you become fanatic. You have to choose every piece of thing that goes into your mouth very carefully. Does this feed the cancer? Does it not feed the cancer? Is this anti-cancerous or is it pro-cancerous? And that's when we become fanatic in this office. Foaming at the mouth fanatic. Yeah? Otherwise, you can be somewhat reasonable. We'll sum that up a little bit further later. But it's fascinating the stuff that Dr. Stacy presented, also about tamoxifen. I thought that was fascinating information. Tamoxifen, how it doesn't block estrogen, but it actually destroys estrogen receptors. Did you hear that? Destroys, gets rid of. Just imagine of the lasting compounding effects that can have on health. Incredible. And it's not even that effective. And that our survival rate is more about early detection than treatment. All that incredible improvement in treatment that we've had has done nothing. Except for a few cancers. Childhood leukemias we're doing well with. Hodgkin's we're doing well with. But early detection has given us most of the gain that we have received. So what is cancer? It gets initiated with something happening to the DNA. We're going to talk about that. Then it starts propagating. Once it reaches a certain size and gets close to the blood vessel, it enters into the blood vessel and goes to distant sites. Every kind of cancer has its own favorite sites. That's why an oncologist knows where to check. But it's not always predictable. And then once the metastasis reaches 3 millimeters in size, you get something called angiogenesis, and that is blood vessels start filling it, and it starts feeding it. And that's when the situation gets out of control. That's cancer. It's a rogue cell. Now I really want you to fasten your seatbelts. Pretend you're very interested right now. Okay, be wide awake, because this is going to get a little bit tough right here. We're going to go through a few definitions, and then we're going to throw those definitions together, and you will have at your fingertips the best understanding we have of cancer today, which is not even really published yet. This is exciting stuff. So epigenome. What is epigenome? Epigenome is gene expression caused by mechanisms other than changes in the underlying DNA structure. So DNA is this helix, and that is really the book of life. That's what gets read for us, gives us our looks, our hair color, how we act even, just a lot of things about us. That gene expression can be changed. It's not hardwired. You've heard me say that several times. It can be changed by what we do. And that's change happens through action of an epigenome. Just think of it of a gene on top of a gene controlling the gene's expression. That's an epigenome. It controls gene expression. Methylation, another really important concept that you're going to hear about in the news in maybe 20 or 30 years from now. Methylation regulates gene expression conversion of cytosine to 5-methylcytosine. If you're into biochemistry, you know cytosine is one of the DNA blocks that is every 4th or 5th one, and we can change it by something called methylation to something different. So our body has the ability to change our very DNA expression, fixing it by methylation. As we age, we get breaks in our DNA. Things break up, literally, physically. Methylation can fix it.
Methylation is always a positive thing.
Methylation is a very positive thing. It's very much a fixing thing. It controls so many things in life. Methylation can prevent Alzheimer's. Methylation can fix cancer. Methylation breaks down excessive hormones. Methylation is powerful. Acetylation is something that is really recent in understanding, very recent. I had to dig all over the place to really find information on this. It regulates gene expression, affects especially histones. What is a histone? Look at histone as a brick around which DNA goes around. And then you have another brick here, and it goes around. Because there's so many of these twirls all over the place, we have to put it into the cell somehow, and the best way to package it is to make little spools of it. Yeah, and then put them all together. They're called centromeres. Now that little brick, we can actually change that through something called acetylation. It's another way of fixing large portions of gene expression. And here's the definition of histone. Spools around which DNA winds, they play a role in gene regulation. So this stuff gets pretty complex, as you can tell. But it's fun. Next definition, phenotype. Stay awake here. Phenotype is any observable characteristics or trait of an organism. Results from the expression of an organism genes as well as the influence of environmental factors. So let's take the Native Americans again. Okay? That one family I was talking about in my office, long, sinewy, very athletic, very Native American from old times, versus your typical Native American today, short, yeah, pot gut, acne-ridden, diabetes, depressed, and has an extremely short lifespan. Identical genes. Identical. Different expression. Phenotype. They're both phenotypes. It's interesting because you can also see seashells. And all the same kind of seashell, depending which ocean you find them, will have a different color and patterns on it. They're identical, but they're expressed differently. So it happens on seashells, humans, everywhere. Phenotype is powerful stuff. We have Down syndrome patients here that have that characteristic facial appearance, larger tongue, and you recognize it when you see it, correct? You can make those physical appearances fade away with proper nutrition. You can change their phenotype. Did you know that all of us have Down syndrome cells in us? The only question is how many? All of us have them. And did you know that you can play up your Down syndrome cells by your lifestyle? It's not an on or off switch, it's just how many of them you have. And how well are you feeding those genes? Okay, this took me all weekend to come up with. This sums up everything that happens in cancer. And it's one of those, you wrote it down and finally got, yes, that's it. Epigenetic dysregulation causing genomic instability due to altered methylation or acetylation pathways. And what this means, this is what cancer is. Our epigene, so our expression, our looks, our cancer, our health, abnormal regulation thereof, causing our genes to become unstable, because that's what cancer is. It's genes gone haywire, DNA doing crazy things, causing our cells to take over the body, make it become unfunctional, which is not a word I know, but it's the best I can do. This is due to methylation and acetylation pathways, so the fix and repair pathways are gone. They're not working. And why are they not working? Well, methylation is fueled, we know, by B12 and folic acid, or folate. 40% of us have a gene that causes us not to absorb folate. And on top of that, folate comes from the word foliage. We're not eating enough foliage. We're not getting enough folate. And those of us that have that unfortunate gene variation that we don't absorb it, we need it in very high quantities. And if we're not getting enough folate in our body, we're not fixing those DNA dysfunctions as they come up. And this can go on and on, causing chronic disease. And really, cancer is the ultimate expression of chronic disease. It's the final iteration. There is a continuum of a pathway towards cancer, which can be as long or short as 10 years and as long as a lifetime. And it can be very predictable. And they're coming up with markers right now that can predict it. There's 2 researchers in this world that I had the privilege of having listening to an interview with that are going to publish soon markers involving the white blood cells and red blood cells that can measure these methylation pathways. But we have a little cheat system that I mentioned in a cardiovascular talk, and that was homocysteine. Homocysteine also measures how well we are absorbing folic acid or folate, and if we're utilizing it for methylation. We're seeing fascinating research coming out of Britain that shows homocysteine levels going up with cancer and going down with cancer regression. It's used there as a way of measuring success in cancer therapy, whichever route the patient is using, whether it's natural or chemical or surgical means. So if a cancer is on the decline, methylation somehow stabilizes itself and homocysteine goes down with it. And it's a very accurate marker, and over there they are now considering it, this is yet controversial, the most accurate tumor marker. Here we use something called CA-125, which is kind of fuzzy because CA-125 is influenced by a lot of other factors besides cancer. So you could be throwing a false positive in there, as we call that, false signal. Methylation pathways is measured directly with homocysteine. We are developing new laboratory methods using red blood cells and lymphocytes. But that's still a ways away. But that is the most exciting of all, because then we're going to be able to nutritionally say you need exactly this amount of folate, you need this amount of B12, you need this amount of vitamin D, and it will tell us exactly how much we're going to need. We don't have that capability now, we just have approximates. And I'm going to give you those approximates later, but it's the best that we can do. But we're going to be able to individualize this within the next generation. Acetylation pathways, we have no way to measure it, we have no clue. It's in the future somewhere, and it'll be awesome when it happens. I hope God gives me the grace to be able to present that to you when it does. It's hard to say when that will happen. So epigenetic dysregulation causing genomic gene instability is due to altered methylation or acetylation pathways. Those pathways are directly affected by what you eat, and methylation in the China study has a dramatic change when you go vegan, when you don't feed inflammation. Yes, that means no animal products. Butter, out. Cheese, out. Milk, out. Meat, out. What's there left to eat? In our cooking classes, they're not 100% vegan, but a lot of these things are. And look at some of the diets from around the world. It is not that difficult once you get into it. We are surrounded by color, texture, variety. We are so blessed to be able to see what we're going to the grocery store. It's unbelievable. But what about my protein? You know, mix 3 different veggies together, color-wise. You're making all the protein you'd ever want. Your body will do this. It's smart. It knows what to do with it. But my sugar regulation, if it's real food, diabetes will go away if it's in the beginning phase by becoming a vegan. Our own Cleveland Diabetes Clinic has proven that just 2 years ago. That diabetes can actually clear up if you make a patient go vegan. Why isn't this published? It is, but it got buried. It got buried. So what to do? What about the vitamins? Didn't Dr. Colin Campbell say no vitamins? Food first. Vitamins are supplemental. They do not replace food. So you don't try to do damage control with vitamins. It's not what you want to do. You want to supplement. And if you know there's a certain deviation towards whatever chronic disease, especially cancer, then your body all of a sudden needs extra fuel, just like when you're fighting a cold. You need extra fuel to fight it effectively. So, Dr. Linus Pauling, everyone hear his name. Linus Pauling. Nobel laureate twice over, the only one ever. Linus Pauling, in the 1960s, considered among scientists as a godlike figure. He is very much revered. Impeccable research. He's also was very much into the whole peace movement and trying to work with Israel, so he's quite renowned. He has passed on recently in his late 90s. But he's really the father of vitamin C and its research. He also did wonderful research in the late 50s on schizophrenia and has some very, very incredible evidence on schizophrenia, which I'm not going to get into now. But he found that if you supplement any cancer patients, we're talking any of them, with vitamin C in larger quantities, and he ranged from 6 to 10 grams a day, you are extending life on average fourfold. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Just one vitamin. Just one vitamin. And this stuff gets ignored. The vitamin C is only one vitamin. One. And these oncologists tend to snicker at holistic for cancer because they say, well, one thing is not powerful enough. And you know what? They're right. They are right. When the cancer's out of control, you need more than just one vitamin. But once we start talking synergy here, this and this and this and this and this and this, all of a sudden you've gathered an army. And this becomes a very powerful wave of anti-cancer activity. Broccoli, we know it's anti-cancerous. It's the cruciferous vegetables, the allume vegetables. Okay, we're talking garlic here. We're going to talk about that in a moment. I'm ahead of myself. We know them to be anti-cancer. Are they alone enough to cause or retreat cancer? No. But if you add the 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, all of a sudden you're getting a powerful force. Vitamin C is a very powerful force. We use ultra-potent C in this office because ultra-potent C is 6 times as absorbable and therefore as effective as regular ascorbic acid. 6 times. It goes right into the fat cells and therefore is the only vitamin C that we have definitive proof that can actually penetrate into our cells, into tumors. So that's ultra-potent C. Regular ascorbic acid, which is the normal vitamin C, may actually irritate. Same thing with a cold, by the way. But that's not today's topic. Vitamin D. Talk about compelling evidence. Vitamin D is almost overwhelming. Vitamin D, when supplemented in the winter in northern hemispheres like Michigan, shows over 10 years a 70% reduction in breast cancer and prostate cancer risk. 70% reduction in colon cancer risk. Not all cancers have been studied yet. The jury's still out on a bunch of them. But just that alone, compelling. I can talk to you about chronic disease such as autoimmune diseases, and it's compelling that way too. But we'll stick to cancer for now. Vitamin D, I'm recommending here in Michigan, 4,000 to 6,000 units a day. We utilize actively. Vitamin E and selenium. A large study was done in London. Over 20,000 nurses. Followed them for a few decades and found overall cancer reduction of 63%. 400 units of vitamin E. And the selenium, I forgot the quantity. It was a fairly small amount though, and if you need the information, I do have it on one of my research papers. Vitamin E alone doesn't do it. Selenium alone doesn't really do it, except for liver cancer. Then selenium can help you fight it, but only with liver cancer. But E and selenium combine. Again, the synergy as it's found in nature. Now, combine the C and the D and the selenium and just make it a group all of a sudden you've got a potent force here. Vitamin A. Well, doesn't vitamin A increase lung cancer in smokers? Yep, it does. If you use synthetic vitamin A. Little detail they didn't publish. If you use the true carrot, the carotenoids, the broad spectrum vitamin A, all 150 plus vitamin A's that are found in nature, they're used to working together, a very powerful anti-cancer force. In fact, decreased resurgence of lung cancer in the latest study by 43%. Vitamin A alone. These are big numbers. And backed up by some European and some American studies. So I can go on and on. How about the phytonutrients? Phytonutrients, the cruciferous vegetables, are very potent. Alum vegetables, alum means cross, and their flowers look like a cross. Examples would be onion and garlic, extremely anti-cancerous. Not only prevention, but also treatment. It's interesting to note that onions and garlic work on methylation pathways in the liver. No surprise. No surprise. To really have a potent force there, you have to go up to many kilos a day. It makes you pretty much unlivable. So therefore, we often utilize something called super garlic. The ones that make you not smell at all, and there's a few of them out there like hyaluronic, and there's a few others, they have allicin removed. Allicin really is the active component of the garlic, and therefore you don't want those odor-free garlics. They are absolutely worthless. Yeah, do not go there. The best that we can do is have them enterically coated, such as we do with super garlic. It makes you not break it down in the stomach. Okay, it makes you break it down in the small intestine, where it's a little safer and takes a little while before it seeps out. You will smell it a bit, but only a bit. So that's super garlic. So phytonutrients, incredible, wide array of vegetables, colors. It was recently published in the New York Times, of all places, that blackberries have an incredible potent force against cancer. This is a new finding. Blackberries. And yes, raspberries as well. And it doesn't take much of them. In fact, they're working on the compounds, including resveratrol, which has made the news lately from grapes, and seeing if we can extract it. And the initial animal studies are showing that even the extracts really play up the methylation and acetylation pathways. Isn't that fun? Getting back to the same stuff time and time again. Very anti-cancerous, especially for things like the digestive cancers. So we're working right now, feverishly, to try to take these extracts, whatever research we already have, and put them together in a mix. Because patients usually cannot eat enough of this, and this, it gets a little complicated. So we're working right now on a mix that we can give to our cancer patients, or as a preventative. We have one of them already that we've used for a long time called Phytocomplete, and it's all the cruciferous vegetables, including some garlic and onion. And this one is fun, not only as a primary mode of treatment, but also as a multiple, and we give it to those patients that are on chemo or radiation. It's interesting to note that side effects are pretty much minimized to barely there when you're on Phytocomplete. Patients who lose their hair totally, if they're on Phytocomplete, don't. In fact, not that long ago, I had a patient, she ran out while undergoing radiation treatment, and she should have lost her hair long ago, and then, so now I'll be at the office in 4 or 5 days. Time she got to the office, having been without the Phytocomplete, she lost most of her hair. It's amazing how protective the effect of damage this stuff is. It's an antioxidant. And oxidation is also one of the things that fuels cancer. Yeah, rust on the cells. So phytonutrients, that essentially vegan lifestyle, is very important when you have cancer, and being somewhat vegan is very important as a preventative. So with lifestyle basics, there's all kinds of things that irritate our cells. One of them is stress. So we have to learn to effectively cope with stress. And my favorite way, my wife gets tired of me saying that, if somebody's under stress, I say exercise. Exercise is the answer to everything. That's not necessarily true, but it does do a lot for management of stress, and it does do a lot for getting rid of the body fat. Remember that obesity thing, and it's linked to cancer? It does do a lot to help more effectively fuel your detoxification pathways because you're sweating. So you're keeping the body clear. Exercise, I feel, is critical. We are coming up with an exercise seminar probably in the summer, but you don't have to do much. Just getting moving is important. As you know by now, you probably, if you've been to a few of my seminars, you notice that I'm a huge proponent of keep on switching the training, speed up, slow down, get that heart rate variability in there, and make sure you're doing something for muscle mass. Muscle mass is critical for good health. And whatever time you put into exercise, you will get back 3- or 4-fold easily in a day. Easily. So, lifestyle basics is important. Get your sleep. Take your vitamins. Eat every meal. Do not skip breakfast. Patients who skip breakfast on average are 12 to 20 pounds heavier. It slows down your metabolism. It makes your insulin jump around. If you have an insulin propensity, you can notice it with having this weight right here, or diabetes runs in your family, or you have hypoglycemia symptoms. Yes, hormonal symptoms for a woman are also often related to insulin dysregulation. Do eat low on the glycemic index. It's something we teach here in lifestyle therapy. It's something we teach at the cooking class, which is coming up February 17, I believe. Don't quote me on that. And it is part of lifestyle basics. So, more is better, right, with nutrients. This is one of my last slides, by the way. And I kept it for last, because this is a really important point. We live in America, the land of muscle cars. Enough power with rockets to get us to the moon. 6,000 square foot houses. More is better. Not when it comes to nutrients. More vitamin A is not better. Folate, the one that does the methylation pathway. More is not better. In fact, it's a double-edged sword. If you go over a certain amount, it will become pro-cancerous in a really mean way. Even worse than being deficient. More is not better. This is a really important point. The sweet spot in folate for most people is no more than 2,000 milligrams to 2,400 milligrams. After that, you're starting to go down the other way. And it becomes toxic again. What is really important is not more vitamin E, but its balance with selenium and other micronutrients. So you got to be careful how you do it. One, is it sourced totally from plants? Is it balanced with the other natural nutrients? And that's why I'm such a huge proponent of everything plant-based, because I don't have to figure it out that way. God did. It's all there in the right proportions. These synthetic vitamins like Centrum or Costco, they're all man-made. And more is better. And if you include a little bit of coenzyme Q10, a little bit of ginkgo, and just hit all the right words on the ingredients, we know that people will buy it. It's not the way to go. You have to go the less popular route and go with the right synergy. The right synergy is very well demonstrated by this colon cancer cell. This is a regular colon cell. It's square. It's what we call a mucus cell. And we like the way that looks. That's a normal colon cell. This is the colon cell that is in a cancerous state. We know how to grow these in a petri dish, by the way, so we can experiment with them. And what you're about to see with this colon cancer cell is turning the cancer world upside down. Because we can make this colon cancer cell go from this very virulent state to 2 weeks later looking normal by application of just a little bit of an extract of hops and 4 minerals in very low quantity. Low quantity. It took the researchers a couple of decades to do this. They knew these nutrients were anti-cancerous, and they knew the secret was in there somewhere, and they had to go through thousands and thousands of different ratios before they hit on this one. This they can do in just 2 weeks. There is not a drug on the market that can do this. This is a human colon cancer cell. We can make it go away in just 2 weeks by changing its genetic expression, by reducing inflammation, by increasing its methylation pathways, by fueling it with specific nutrients. They're starting to do the same work now with breast cancer cells. This is only a colon cancer cell. This is the beginning. But this is where we're going. We're dealing with some very powerful research in the nutritional world that is starting to outperform drugs easily. This is not slash, cut, and burn. And this was published about 8 months ago. So I think outside of, you're probably the first one to see it outside of a medical conference. So it's really exciting, following this closely and applying it as it comes available for our patients. That's our next seminar. Chronic disease, the upcoming epidemic. Here we're going to spread our wings a lot further. We're going to hit a lot of different things. And it should be fun. We also have upcoming a cooking class February 17. And I have already tasted the dessert. The dessert is to die for. Tina comes dancing to my office and look what I got in this. I'm not going to give it away. But
is it fat or is it
what's
plant?
That?
Is it fat or plant, that dessert?
A little bit of both. Yeah. It was very good. So I got, and you will be fed a very scrumptious meal while being displayed on how to do this. It is mostly vegan, correct?
Yeah, almost 100%.
Almost 100%?
There's a tiny bit of, since it's a more Indian style food this time, we are going to use ghee, which is clarified butter.
Right.
Just for some richness in the winter, because that's something that, as we're eating seasonally, that's something that we can afford to do this time of year.
Right, right. And it's something that's very much available, fairly easily learnable. The foods are very much available around here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we try to really make it work that way. This is your chance to spread your wings and try something new. We're happy to have you here. We're going to do that right here. We are doing these on a regular basis. It's part of our lifestyle therapy also. We incorporate that along with the exercise. And we're trying to change our patients into foodies. It's a good thing. Being a foodie is very interesting. We love being foodies at our house. Absolutely, it's so fun because I'm not going farmer's market now, but still we come home with our groceries and right away the whole family's sniffing through all the grocery bags. Ooh, what's this? Ooh, nice color, Dad. And it's just, they're discussing beetroots and this and that, and what is this weird thing, and how do you prepare it? And it's just so nice to see the kids interested in that and have an appreciation for that meal. Great meal, Mom. And just it's family time, and it's also teaching time, and it's taking care of your body time. It's really important, and we enjoy this very much. It's a great way to enrich your lives, get rid of all those pictures that you saw up there with fatigue and depression, and it's what Tina and Leah helps us do.